I'm Craig Kenneth, a relationship coach and a psychotherapist. Every relationship is different, and every breakup is different. Work with me, and you'll get professional help on your situation. Just click on the link in the description below, or go to my website, askcraig.net. Hi there, I'm Coach Craig Kenneth.
And I'm Coach Margaret.
And today we're going to be talking to you about my ex is too stubborn to reach out. Well, Margaret, one of the things that people talk to me about the most, and they constantly bringing up, they're terrified about, is that they're dating somebody that is so stubborn that even if they miss you, even if they think about you, and they want to revisit the idea of getting back with you, they're not going to do it because they're stubborn.
And prideful?
And yes, and they believe that the people that I'm talking about here, believe that their ex would rather be lonely than admit that they're wrong. They would rather sit there being prideful with what their decision is than to say they'll miss me and they will contact me despite that.
Okay, that would be an unusual dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
I've been a therapist for many years, and I've never seen anybody, or very few people, have that kind of sense of self and make a bad decision. It's not a dynamic I've seen often. However, it's certainly a possible dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
There are some people, who'd rather be right than be president. Okay. So,
but the percentage of people that believe it compared to the percentage of people that would actually do it is there's probably
Sure.
a big discrepancy.
Sure.
Because the percentage of people watching this that are just convinced my ex is not going to reach out, I know this person, I know them better than anybody, they're not going to reach out to me, she would rather die before she did that.
well then, I would say she's pretty angry. What would you say?
I would say probably.
Yeah. Well, Craig wanted to start to talk about stubbornness today, and I said no.
But you're not that stubborn, so you did it.
Right, there's some hope for me. Why is it that people become stubborn, even to the point of making a very bad life decision? Why do they do that?
Mm-hmm.
And is stubbornness an end in itself? I'm going to be disagreeable and not do what you want just to get you because I'm angry? In that case, anger would be one of the dynamics at work here.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
But, okay, when we're at the point of calling an ex-partner stubborn, we are usually pretty angry and unhappy with that person.
Mm-hmm.
Listen to some of the synonyms for stubborn. Some of the concepts are hard-nosed, inflexible, rigid, uncompromising, immovable, obstinate, ornery, pig-headed. You get the picture.
Yep.
I don't want to be called that.
No.
And if you think I'm that, I don't want to talk to you either. We hear stubborn most often in the context of no contact after a breakup,
That's right.
where the advice is not to contact your ex unless they contact you.
Mm-hmm.
We hear people say that they're really worried that their ex-partner will never make contact with them,
Mm-hmm.
stubbornly maintaining their position,
That's right.
and not listen even if they are presented with good arguments about things again and again.
Yeah.
I've told her 100 times I can take better care of her than anybody else and that I make more money than George.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The implications are that this person needs to be right and would not change his position, and that they do not listen.
That's right.
So the assumption is if they don't agree, they're not listening. They may be listening and not being moved by these seemingly logical arguments.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. What is the opposite of stubborn? Agreeable, flexible, reasonable, easy to deal with, easy to work with, etc. You get the picture.
Exactly, yep.
And that's okay if you're both on the same page about decisions.
Yeah.
You were going to say something, I'm sorry.
No, I agree with you, and
Yeah.
I'm just, probably one of the questions that people are wondering is why do people become stubborn?
And that's what I'm going to talk about. All right? Because it's not usually just for making themselves feel prideful or wanting to hurt you or not listening to your wonderful arguments. Some of the common reasons why people become stubborn are they're afraid of addressing angry directly.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Afraid of addressing anger directly.
Yes. In other words, if I don't want to have contact with my partner, it may be that I don't want to be honest about how angry I am at them,
Mm-hmm.
or that I have trouble being angry with anybody, that I get kind of scared when people are angry back at me.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's one reason not to respond.
Uh-huh.
And instead you kind of become passive-aggressive and say, I'll drive you crazy by not contacting you, so there.
Uh-huh. To punish them.
Yeah. Or thinking that being stubborn in a given situation will get them what they want. By wearing others down. Yes, it's a manipulation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It can be.
Yeah.
Or again, protect them from something painful. Again, like the angry encounter.
Why would being angry protect them?
There are many people who are terrified of any kind of anger in any relationship.
Mm-hmm.
These are people who probably got in a whole lot of trouble as kids for being angry.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a normal human emotion, it has to come up, or were very frightened of some person in the house when they became angry.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
So maybe they started to become afraid of their own anger, that they
Absolutely.
would
They're afraid
become
of
like
anger.
that person?
They're afraid of anger, period.
Yeah.
They don't want you angry at them, they don't want to be angry at you, and if they get angry at you, you might get angry at them, and that has to be avoided at all costs.
And you could be abandoned if you get angry at the person.
Absolutely. There are a lot of reasons why people can't deal directly with anger.
Mm-hmm. And so you might think that somebody that is in that position, they're developmentally delayed in some ways.
In a way, because it's very important to be able to have some anger and to be able to express it. Otherwise, although I don't like the term, you turn into a doormat. And I've known several people in that situation because they could not address anything with a parent or a partner because they were so terrified of anyone being angry.
Yeah.
And for some people who came from abusive homes, when somebody got angry at you, the next thing that happened was you got hit. Okay? Or put down, or all sorts of awful things.
So they might take the passive-aggressive approach of...
I'm not talking to you, so there.
Yeah.
Now, if they were able to talk with someone and say, I haven't responded because I'm really angry at you still, and here are the reasons, that would be fine. We could all work with that.
Yeah.
But it's not because they're just being stubborn. They're scared. Okay?
Do you think they're always scared, or just sometimes they might be scared?
People who are really terrified of anger and of anyone being angry at them are always scared.
Wow.
And these are the same people who can't say no to a boss or no to anybody who's in any kind of authority.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a really, really desperate state of affairs. And I've spent certainly part of my career helping people to get in touch with their normal anger so that they can use it to protect themselves. If someone steps on your face, it's not okay to say that's all right. You need to say, get off of my face. Okay?
Yeah.
So it leaves people very vulnerable and easily used. The most common reason, however, for what looks like stubbornness is fear that one's freedom and independence is threatened. Okay?
Wow. Let's really get
Think
them
about
to
that.
understand that for a
Yeah.
second. Say that again.
All right. The most common reason for stubbornness is fear that one's freedom and independence is threatened.
Okay. So think about that for yourself for a minute.
Yeah.
Those of you that are watching. If somebody is trying to get you to do something that you don't want to do, you're going to become stubborn.
Yeah.
I don't want to do that. I'm not interested in that. And let's say for a minute that your neighbor who lives 5 houses away came to your house and said, I need you to come over and paint my house. And I don't have any money, but I need you to do this for me. And they keep badgering you and badgering you.
Come by every night when you come home tired.
Yeah. Are we ready? We got to get started.
Yeah.
And you're like, no, I'm not going to do it.
They have other neighbors call you to say that you better do it.
You want to guess what they would be calling you?
Yeah.
Stubborn.
Yeah.
See?
Because I gave him all these good reasons why he should do it, and I understand why he won't do it. He
Yes,
must be
you're
very,
being
very
stubborn.
Yeah.
He's so stubborn, he won't see it my way. You see how ridiculous it is when it's happening in context to you? Oftentimes you need to be able to put yourself in that position in order to see what you're doing to the other person.
Right.
So you are essentially trying to bully or badger them into your position. And why are you doing it? Because of your anxiety. Right?
Okay, yes, Craig, that's a concept you described very clearly. Yeah.
The anxiety would cause you to try and force the reconnect whether they want it or not.
Whether they want it or not, and
And
that's the key.
You're acting very selfishly and being very self-absorbed in that position. Just like your neighbor would be in trying to get you to see things the way they want it to be.
There's a current add-on like that's truly wonderful. The guy meets another guy at the mailbox and he said, do you know anybody who could paint my house or do my roof or whatever it is? And the guy said, well, yes, I might. And he says, well, good. Well, would you check against other prices and maybe book them for 2 weeks? You know, I hope the guy is not afraid of anger and could say, that is not reasonable. See you much later. Yeah.
Or never again.
Or never again would be good, yeah. But we live on a continuum, as we do with most things. Independence is on one end, okay? And the need for others and for support is on the other end.
Which might be one of our highest biological drives.
Yes, absolutely.
The need to be with others.
Yes.
And so, if you think about it in this way, for those of you who are still convinced they're going to be more stubborn, the need to be with other people is higher than the need to be stubborn. Right?
Right.
So think about that. Your belief is that this person would rather be stubborn, but if you look at it biologically, the need to be with the people that we love and that we care about is much higher.
That's absolutely right.
And some clinicians might even say that it is the highest function is to stay close to your loved ones.
But on the other hand, independence is also extremely important. Let me start where we usually start, with the family of origin. Okay? What happens when a child turns 2?
The terrible twos.
The terrible 2s.
They're already called terrible. Why are they so terrible?
They're already called because they said, no, I'm not doing that.
That's right.
Yeah.
No, think about that. The child is starting to develop independence.
A sense of self and independence and saying, you're not going to tell me I can't touch that. I think I'll touch that and see what you do.
And so now look at what they're being told. They're terrible.
They're
terrible because they won't do everything that I want them to do.
Yeah. And yes, we call it the terrible 2s. Even that early, asserting oneself and holding that position gets a bad rap. Okay?
Yep.
And I'll give you another example. The whole issue of independence comes up again in adolescence.
Oh, yeah.
When we say, no, you can't go out tonight, and they roll their eyes. And say, well, you know, that's not reasonable. And, you know, we all say they should be lawyers because then they can give us a heck of an argument and so forth and so on. But they are doing their developmental task.
Yeah.
A well-developed, healthy grown-up does not give up their independence or their ability to make decisions for themselves.
Yeah.
They may marry and agree with people or date people and agree with people, but they come to a mutual decision. It isn't one person trying to coerce another and calling them stubborn if they refuse to play.
Yeah.
Okay? Try and stop an adolescent from following his developmental task of separating. It's like trying to stop a train. Okay?
Even Spider-Man had a hard time doing that.
Yes, he did. That's right.
And you're not Spider-Man.
No. The first thing to think about is your partner. How well do you know that person?
Well, some of these people out there are convinced I know this person better than anybody.
Well, are they stubborn in other areas of their lives? Does being stubborn get them in trouble with friends, family, and other people?
Mm-hmm.
Do they not listen to what other people say?
Mm-hmm.
Because to have a relationship of any kind, working or personal, you do have to listen. So I hope this stubborn person is not going to make a terribly self-destructive decision about saying no just for the fun of it.
Yeah.
Or just to make you pay, or just to make you hurt.
Mm-hmm.
And remember that part of the definition is especially in spite of good arguments and reasons to go along with me.
Mm-hmm.
All right? So remember that the fear of being controlled and losing one's freedom to make decisions is the biggest fear here.
Yes.
And it's something that people should evaluate anytime they're considering a commitment. Because inevitably, I mean, although if you're a well-developed human being, you're not going to give up decision-making, but you are going to have to negotiate around it.
Mm-hmm.
And most people, if they feel like they're going to be smothered
Yep.
and not able to make decisions, will do exactly what they should do, which is get stubborn and defend their right.
Because you're imposing on theirs.
Yes. If you do have contact, if that person reaches out to you, treat his or her decision with respect. He or she made it for a reason.
That's right. And don't let your anxiety cloud that reason. Don't let your selfishness and your inability to see what they want overlook the fact that they wanted it for a reason.
Right. And believe me, you don't want to live with someone for a long time who really doesn't want to be there.
No, absolutely not.
Also be sure that you listen. If you're very dedicated to getting your point across, sometimes you don't listen. So be sure that you listen. And it's easy to check back by saying something like, did I get that right? So repeat back what they said, very simple technique, and say, do I understand that correctly?
Yep.
Or, here's what I thought I heard you say, and say it again. That way you're letting the other person know that although you're interested in negotiating, you're not trying to strong-arm them.
Yeah.
Okay? And strong-arming is a major problem. It doesn't feel like it, and you don't mean to be disrespectful, but, you know, it's kind of, how come you don't like my great arguments?
Yeah.
Okay?
How come you're not coming over to paint that house?
Yeah, right.
I've already given you 12 reasons.
Yeah, and I'm very logical and you're not.
Ridiculous.
The no contact concept, which Coach Craig teaches, is really the best way to demonstrate your respect for your former partner's decision.
That's right.
If she wants you or if he wants you, he will contact you.
Yeah.
No amount of logic against his or her stubbornness is going to change anything. You listening carefully may make a difference. Okay?
When they come to you.
When they come to you, I want to be clear about that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's why I always teach you guys to learn about the mirroring, validating, and empathizing. And you can find that especially in my video, The Reason Couples Argue. Because you want your other partner to feel heard, understood. Right. You want to validate what their point is. And if you can empathize and put yourself in that situation, you're no longer opposing them, you're agreeing with them and understanding them. And that's going to bring the arguments down tremendously.
That's right.
And you really have to learn that skill, because if you don't, you're going to get caught up in your arguments and you're trying to convince them, and it's simply just going to make them even more stubborn on their position.
Right. Because this is what I said my position was. You're not hearing me. You don't have to agree with me, but at least hear what I'm saying.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay? And it's always very good to ask yourself some personal questions about all this. How stubborn am I? I'm going to look at that. Am I stubborn? Do I not listen to good arguments? Maybe I'm a little...
You might be ignoring their good arguments as to why they didn't want to be with you.
Yep.
Oh, I guess you probably hadn't thought of that. But if you think about why they told you they broke up with you, you might have been ignoring some really good arguments.
Yep. Do I really listen to others' point of view? Oftentimes we think we do, but we really don't.
No.
And when you listen...
Especially when we have that anxiety.
And when you listen for a living, which Coach Craig and I do, you realize how desperate some people are to be heard. And if you think about it, in any kind of a daily encounter with somebody, if you go to a store to buy something and the salesperson really, really listens to what you want, it feels good.
Yes.
Okay? I went to the dentist one time, and he was telling me I needed some long procedure, and a lot of money, of course, and said, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, or we could do this and we could do that, but this third thing you have no choice about. I left then, never went back. Don't tell me I have no choice. Okay?
So you had it done by another dentist.
Yeah, I did. Have I gotten to know my partner well enough to know what he or she can't tolerate? There are some people who can't tolerate what you feel like is a suggestion but may sound like an order. No grown-up wants to be ordered around.
Why is it you think that some people are more independent and in their own plan without the ability to budge?
I think it goes back to childhood.
Exactly.
And the consequences of behavior that we learn. We get wired around that kind of thing really early. And I've explored that with people. And what you usually find out, if you're really terrified of other people's anger, then you find out they had every reason to be when they were little. And it's very hard to forget those things that affect our wiring and remember that we're not in the same position.
And the other thing that comes to my mind when I think about that, and I'm sure you could think of the example I'm thinking of here, is that if your parents did not meet your needs and they were not dependable, that when you're in a romantic relationship, you're going to kind of feel like your partner isn't dependable, and so you have to trust yourself over the other people. So there's some kind of like developmental arrest going on there.
If it works right, we assert ourselves for the first time at age 2, and it feels really good. We may not remember it, but there's something exhilarating about toddling away from mom, okay? Because just as we're wired to want others, we're also wired to be independent.
That's right.
And make good decisions for ourselves. And I remember taking a course one time in all of this and being 2 and asserting yourself, and they talked about the joy of upright locomotion. Once you can walk away, and it's the ultimate freedom, okay? And it comes up again, of course, in adolescence, where kids' normal developmental task is to pull away from their family of origin and make their own friends and like them better. Many parents are infuriated because they've lost control, and they're sad because this kid is making, preparations to eventually separate. And none of us like separation one bit.
Nope.
And I'll tell you an example about an adopted child I dealt with. The mother brought her in because when she turned 14, mother was lucky, it could have been 12, when she turned 14, she started to assert herself and say, no, I don't want to go to that school, and I'm not going to go because you said so. And mother presented many brilliant arguments. And I asked, this was an adopted child now, where was this child at 2? And the mother said, what does that have to do anything? And the kid, who had more sense than the mother, said, I was in one of my temporary foster homes and I didn't dare say no when I was 2 because I didn't know if I'd be thrown out. So this kid had not learned how to handle beginning to be assertive and how to be angry and say, you're not going to tell me what to do for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
But mother thought I had lost my mind.
One of the things that I can think about too is like when I was little, I was very thin, I didn't like to eat. And I was very, very picky about what I would eat. Yep. And for me, it felt very personal to put something in my mouth. And so when my parents would try and make me eat something that I wasn't going to eat, I became stubborn. And I just wasn't going to do it. Right. And I would outweight them. I would do whatever. If they said you're going to go to bed go hungry, I'll take hungry. Just
Yep.
leave me alone. I'm not putting that in my
But
mouth.
you're not forcing me to eat something I don't want to eat.
That's right.
And that was the only way you could get any control in that situation. And I say good for you.
Yep.
Because I think that's a brutal thing that was done often for many, many years. And I find adults in my practice who are still mad.
I can remember a time, well, must have been 9 years old, maybe around there, and my dad and my stepmom wanted me to eat tuna fish. Now, I don't like the smell of fish. I hate it. Fish are for friendship, okay?
Yeah.
I've always had fish as pets,
Yeah.
right? Pets,
Yeah.
right? I like fish in my aquariums, not on my dinner plate.
Yes.
So they one day wanted me to eat tuna fish. I wasn't going to do it. I refused to do it. They said, you're going to sit there all night. I said,
Then I'll
okay,
sit here all night.
I'll sit here all night. They said, you're not going to eat. I said, I'm not going to eat. They even relented and said, look, just try it. If you just try it, then we'll let you leave. We'll feed you something else. I wasn't going to do it. There
Good
was
for
no
you.
way I was putting.
And you know, my first response, because I don't think there's any healthy adult who's ever given up their independence, my response is always good for you. You did what you had to do to maintain your sense of self.
Yep.
Yep.
I still remember that many, many years ago.
I'm sure you do. And like I say, I have adults of all ages talking to me about how offended they still are and how angry they are. And if they take it back to their parents, the parents say, well, we thought that's how you're supposed to do it. Put yourself in that position. Did anybody make you eat stuff you didn't want? I don't think anybody tried to give me a Brussels sprout, but it's a good thing.
Now, had my dad said to me, if you don't eat that, I'm never going to see you again, I might have put it in my mouth and said, okay.
Yeah, because you didn't like him that much. Yeah.
Well, I
You
mean,
were willing to negotiate. If you leave, I'll eat this. Yeah.
No, the other way. If I never saw you again, that I thought I would never see him again, I might have tried it.
Might have
So
tried
my point is this: these people are convinced their ex is so stubborn. They would rather they can imagine their ex being me sitting there not eating that sandwich.
Yeah, just for the sake of being difficult.
But the loss was just staying hungry for a night, not staying hungry forever.
Right.
So you believing that your ex is so stubborn that even if they miss you, even if they think about you and they do want to revisit the idea, they're not going to reach out. I just don't think that's true.
I've never seen anybody make decisions based on that. I know it can look like that. I know it can feel like that.
And how many years have you been in practice?
35.
35? Come on, Margaret, let's up it. We know it's
all right. It's, yeah. He says I learned.
135.
He
is
says
more
I
like it.
learned with a chisel and some rocks, but I'll deal with him later.
And, even in all my experience too, I've been a therapist since 2002 and did a behavior analysis for 4 years before that. I just don't think so either.
Right. And, in any relationship you do give up a little, but you have to have faith that there's going to be a back and forth, and that if you say no, that's infringing on my decision making and my sense of independence, you've got to know that your partner's going to say okay.
Yeah. So, your point is this. You may really believe that your ex is so stubborn that no matter what, they will not reach out to you. I don't think that's true.
I don't think it's true either.
She doesn't think it's true. What I think would happen, if they were extremely stubborn, but if they missed you, they would do an indirect, direct approach.
Absolutely.
They would contact you about something benign and meaningless, like a phone bill, or a have you seen my sneakers, or
I miss your cat.
I
That's
miss
my
the
favorite.
cat. Yeah, I've heard that
Not
one.
you, your cat.
I've heard that one several times.
Have you?
But yeah, really. I miss the cat. They'll do something where it's not directly related about you, but that will be the door, the cracks that open the door where they can come through.
And I'm also not sure that you would really want a years-long commitment to somebody who was that stubborn, that prideful, that unwilling to negotiate.
Yeah.
So think of it from that point of view, too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You're going to be with somebody that's going to hold the relationship hostage
Yeah.
to the extent that they will not negotiate at all?
Right. A healthy adult has periods of being stubborn to defend their independence, has periods of being reliable and giving and reasonable, when closeness is more important, and that's a tension that we're always going to have. So think about it that way. In some senses, stubbornness in a 2-year-old is the healthiest possible thing you can see.
Yeah.
So when the kid says no, it's, all right, kid, good for you. Most parents don't do that.
And it shows that the kid feels safe enough to do that.
Yes, it
which
does.
is a good sign.
Yes, it does, yeah.
So, what do you think? Did we cover stubbornness well enough today?
I hope we did. That stubbornness is not always a bad thing, and that when we're hurt...
They're still not convinced.
when we're hurt and upset, and everybody's hurt and upset, and we reach out with our very best logic and reasons, and the other person doesn't move, it's very upsetting and anxiety-provoking, and it can make you angry. Yeah.
And you certainly don't want to keep pushing them because they're just going to get more entrenched.
But if you do have the concept, what I'm saying is be more interested in listening than talking. And often talk about partners changing or changing themselves as if it could happen in 30 days or 60 days. It depends on what the issue is, but if it's a major issue, like of whether you feel smothered or abandoned, or somewhere in the middle, those changes don't happen in 30 or 60 days. You can negotiate with a partner, but if somebody comes back to you in a panic 30 days later and says, I changed, no, they can't. You can't make a major change in that period of time. We're talking months.
You might make some progress, of course.
You might make a commitment to making some changes. But you can't really negotiate some major personal changes in a short period.
They're not going to believe it.
No.
They're gonna be like, no, I've heard this before. And chances are you've been telling them that before.
Telling them
that you were going to change that particular thing and that you hadn't.
And, of course, and 6 months later when it hasn't happened, we're right back where we were. Okay? But when we're anxious, it's easy to promise things we don't intend to follow through with.
Or good intention, have the intention.
Oh, I have good intentions today. 2 weeks from today, however.
That's right, your motivation level has dropped, you've gotten what you wanted, and you're back to your old
ways.
ways.
So nobody's trying to hornswoggle you. It's just that when things kind of go back to normal and a status quo, it's hard to remember what was supposed to change.
Yep, absolutely. So, I think we did a nice job of helping you guys understand that while your ex may not necessarily do what you want them to do, it doesn't mean that they're never going to miss you enough to reach out.
No, it doesn't. And again, you have to be more interested in listening than in what you're going to say to them.
And a big part of that would be learning to soothe your anxiety and working on that aspect of it.
Oh, that's a huge task that we talk about often. You need to know how to calm yourself down. We can talk more about that another day.
That's definitely something that we talk about in Skypes.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, indeed.
All right. So that's it for this video. I'm Coach Craig Kenneth.
And I say be stubborn in good health.
And when you want to get my help personally, go to my website, askcraig.net. You can do email coaching with me. You can do Skype coaching with me. And if you got to get with me right away, I do offer after-hours emergency Skypes. But that's it for this video.
I'm Coach Margaret.
And I'm Coach Craig Kenneth, and we will talk with you soon.